This course is presented to you free of charge by TTJ Tech Services of www.ttjtech.biz and by Stir It Up of www.stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U, not an I, so that's STURITUP.com. TTJ Tech Services and Stir It Up are pleased to offer this course to you to the glory of God and to the benefit of all those who listen. In our previous session, we discussed what's on my iPad, and you got a chance to hear from the various trainers the apps that are on our iPads, not in great detail, but we did an overview of those apps, what they do, and what we, how we use our iPads. We also discussed the fact that many of us use, or some of us use the iPad a little bit differently from the phone, that we have different apps on each device and different configurations that we like. Now, in the next session after this, we're going to be talking, that'll be tomorrow, about, it's called Did You Know? And so we're going to talk about a lot of little things that you may or may not know you can do with the iPad and Apple products. So this all ties together, because in this session right now, we are going to present to you what I like to call a day in the connected digital life. Praise God, I think that's a cool title that he gave me. And we basically are using this to explain overall what we do on a given day with our Apple products. This is not the first time we've done this presentation, and I'm sure it won't be the last, but it's up to date for what we're doing right now in 2024. And the key thing to understand here is that this is not going to be limited to just iPad today. Although iPad for me, and, I think now for Trainer Cliff as well, and certainly for Sarah, although I think she stepped away for a bit there. But I think for all of us, we can say that it's a key part of it. The iPad is a key part of it, but it's not the only piece of the puzzle. All these Apple products work together so beautifully and give us the opportunity to do things that years ago we just never even thought possible. Now, I like to define the connected digital life as an experience where everything that you do, everything that all of your resources, all your stuff, your documents, your music, your photos, everything, websites, they're all available to you no matter where you go, whether you're at home or on the road, whatever device you're using. And it kind of sounds like iCloud, doesn't it? And that truly is a key point in this, is the use of iCloud. That's absolutely essential in the connected digital life as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm not going to go through every moment of a day, and of course our days vary slightly, but I want to share some of the common things that we do and then some of the less common things, and I'll have Trainer Cliff do the same then as well. Generally, my wife and kids are already, they're leaving pretty early in the morning, close to 8 o'clock, a little before. And if I would happen to not be sure, if I maybe didn't hear it or wasn't paying attention, one of the things I could do is something like this. And I apologize if I set off anybody's devices here, but if I say, Siri, is the garage door closed?
The main garage door is closed.
Siri, is the front door locked?
The front door is locked.
And of course, if it's not, I can lock it. I can close the garage door. And actually, our front door is set to auto lock, automatically lock it after a few minutes. So that really wouldn't be an issue anyway. But I'm just showing you that you can do that. Now, this is all possible because of a variety of so-called accessories, smart home devices, and a feature that Apple has created, a platform really, called HomeKit, which we're going to talk more about tomorrow in our Did You Know session. To be clear, I don't use all HomeKit products for my smart home because there's some other ones that are not HomeKit that I still really like because they offer some unique features. So
basically,
I'm
what you're saying is you're a
absolutely
trader.
who gave you co-host privileges? No, but it got to be fair, right? I am an Apple fanboy all the way, but I'm also open-minded enough if there's another really good product. Excuse me, and I think it. For example, I'll talk more about it here in a little bit. In fact, I'm just going to save it for in a little bit. So anyhow, but the variety of HomeKit accessories. So the garage door. We have our coffee maker on a smart plug, which works with HomeKit. So not only can I ask SIRI if the coffee maker is on or off, just as I did with the garage door being closed, but we can also use our voice to turn the coffee maker on and off. But even more than that, we can create automations. And so we can create recurring automations. Now, we don't usually do it for weekdays, and that's because in the summer, we don't necessarily have the exact same time every day that we are up. And even in the school year, it can vary for two reasons. One, because some days my wife likes coffee and some days she drinks tea. And also because when I get up is variable, even during the school year, because I have different clients that I work with at different times of day. Some days I'm working out of the home. Some days I'm in the home. So what we do is we tend to just make the coffee when we're ready for it. But Sunday is a different story. Sunday, we always go to church, and that's a standard thing. So we do have an automation that will automatically turn on the coffee maker in the morning in time for us, right? So that when we're waking up, we wake up to the smell of freshly brewed coffee and it's brewing and it's just about ready to go. And then it will also turn the coffee maker off when it's time for us to leave for church. Now, the other really cool thing about that is what if we're on vacation? What if we're actually away? We have a couple of vacations planned this summer, praise God. And actually this past weekend, we had visited my parents who are a couple hours away. So we weren't home this past Sunday. Well, the cool thing about it is the automation is also set that if there's nobody home, it will not make the coffee. It will not turn on the coffee maker if nobody's home. It uses the device location. There are different ways that can be done. The location of your devices. You can have occupancy sensors. There are, combinations of factors that can be used, but that particular automation really is using the iPhones of each person in the family. So that's the coffee maker. That's a smart plug. Oh, and the other thing about that is that we can do. So I mentioned to you that sometimes it varies whether my wife wants coffee or tea and exactly what time I'm up. So we kind of just do it on the fly. But some days she knows, like there'll be some evenings where just before she goes to bed, I will hear her filling the coffee maker, grinding the coffee or what have you, and filling the coffee maker. I'll say to her, I said, do you want me to have the coffee maker automatically turned on for you in the morning? So she'll say, yeah, go ahead and do that. So I can say to SIRI, I can say, turn on the coffee maker tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. And it'll just do a one-time automation like that. So you can even do stuff, things like that. So I'm taking a long time on just that. Not everything's going to be that detailed or that long here for me to describe, or we'd be here way longer than our session normally goes. But we won't do that. But I wanted to explain that one a little bit and kind of set, build a foundation so you know what I'm talking about. So that's one of the first things we do. Our use of technology continues throughout the morning and throughout the day. In the morning, if I'm when I'm having coffee or having breakfast or both, I'm often watching a show in the morning on the television using the Apple TV. I have two very awesome TV platforms that I use both of. One is Xfinity X1 from Comcast, and the other is the Apple TV. And we have Apple TVs throughout the whole house, and they are just absolutely fantastic. We did a presentation. In fact, we did a multi-part presentation on the Apple TV. You can find it on our YouTube channel and so forth. And we'll probably do one again next year. But it was a very thorough presentation on learning to use the Apple TV with and without voiceover. And so you can get familiar with that. But it is our TV platform of choice. It has access to our Xfinity Live TV, including not only live channels, but on-demand content and DVR. You can watch all that on the Apple TV. It also has access to all the streaming apps we could possibly imagine. Peacock, Paramount Plus, Max, Disney Plus, Hulu, all those, and Amazon Prime, anything we want there. And then, of course, movies and shows that we rent or purchase from the iTunes store or that we've already purchased in our library. And of course, our photos, our music, Apple Arcade, Apple Fitness Plus, all of these things available on the Apple TV with a beautifully designed remote, fully integrated with iCloud. There was okay, never mind. Anyhow, fully integrated with iCloud, and you got voiceover and everything. So it's a great option for anybody who has other Apple devices because you can pick up where you left off and so on. So while I'm eating breakfast, I'll often watch something on HGTV or Food Network or something of that nature, or one of the Apple TV channels. But then it's usually time for me to get to work. Now I'll often ask SIRI, what's my update? I'll say that to the HomePod, and that tells me the weather conditions, tells me what's on my calendar and reminders for the day, and it gives me a quick news report. I don't like to read a lot of news because it's very, but I do typically ask for that little short. It's like a 1 or 2 minute news briefing, and you can choose the default source. There is, I think, is maybe NPR is the default. They also have, I think, all the major ones. I can't remember which ones you can say, but most of the major ones, Fox News, Washington Post, I think maybe MSNBC. I don't know. There's several of them. And then also CNN. And you can also say Apple News Today, which is like an 8-minute news story kind of thing that they do every day. So you have that option. And I might use the Apple News app a little bit too if I want to look at something more. But I really like the Apple News Plus stories that are not necessarily about all the, political strife and everything, but, unique things about science or technology or something cool like that. So those are neat to look at. And I've recently been doing the Apple News Plus puzzle called Quartiles that was just introduced in version 17.5. It is a lot of fun, and I have been doing it for 3 or 4 days now. My wife and kids have been doing it to some extent, and my mom has been doing it every day. So it's been fun to do that. It's challenging, but it's fun, and it works beautifully with voiceover. So anyhow, after all of this, if it's a school day, work day, all that, I'm getting to work and I'm doing any one of a number of things, and it's hard to say necessarily because each day might be a little different. But whatever it is, I'm doing it using technology and most likely using the iPad. It might be that I'm training a customer. Sometimes I have some customers to train in the morning right away, and I'll use FaceTime audio or Zoom to work with them. Some days it will be that I am working on creating a document for some reason. So I'll be using Pages, or if it's just for my own reference, I might use Notes. But either way, I might be, there are some days, although not as often, admittedly, but some days that I'm working on something like a keynote presentation or a Clips movie. I have to make an Apple Clips movie coming up here to promote a special event that we're having this summer, a church-related event called the Bedford County Faith Summit. And so we're going to be making a Clips video about that. But also, I might use numbers to create an invoice for somebody, a spreadsheet, what have you. And, on occasion, I'm recording. Maybe I'm recording a podcast. And so I will use a combination of apps there. Anything from voice memos and GarageBand to Fairlight and Backpack, which I mentioned to you yesterday. And Trainer Cliff mentioned to you yesterday. Fairlight is a very beautifully designed, very accessible audio editing app. I don't usually record in that app. I usually record in another app and then bring it into Fairlight, but I do the editing in there if I need to do trimming and if I need to make adjustments to it, because it's very, very easy to edit audio in Fairlight Recording Studio. And Backpack is more of a one-shot deal where I'm recording almost the equivalent of a live, recording where I don't plan to edit, but I want to really use sound effects as I go. And I can use my screen, or I can use the keyboard, Trainer Cliff. That's one place where I do use the keyboard. because I can set it up that, number one is applause, number two is laughter, whatever. And so I do like to use that in backpack. So, making a podcast, making a product review, a tech tip, something of this nature. So all of these things might happen in a given workday. And at some point, it's time for lunch, which gives me an opportunity to talk about that a little bit. But also would say that if it's a summer day or a weekend, of course, things might be different. But even then, we sometimes use technology. Like I've talked before about how we use the Notes app when we make a spring cleaning list. And we have a spring cleaning we did this year again, praise God, and it went very well. We used Notes where we created a spring cleaning checklist, and we also assign, you can assign in the reminders app, you can assign tasks to individual people in the family. So you could use Notes or reminders. We used Notes, but we wrote the person's name, so it was still assigned to them. And then, you could, it was collaborative, so you could check that off, and you could see what, who was getting their spring cleaning done.
I wanted to point out that there was
go ahead.
a intermittent or a small update today of what is it, 17.5.1, I guess,
Yes.
some security patches. That, and also you mentioned Paramount Plus. I wanted to give a little, even though they waited until after I paid for mine, to offer a discount on the Paramount Plus Showtime bundle. So if you do like watching Star Trek and, what's that one guy, Man with the Plan,
Yep.
some other classic shows, The Love Boat. I love that show from the 70s. Call me a little oldies classic guru, but I love that show. But there's a lot of great content on that show. I mean, you literally could watch Paramount Plus for hours and still not get through all the content they have. Great service. But anyways, they have a discounted price for the Paramount Plus Showtime bundle right now if you go to their website.
It is, and it is, Cliff, I agree with you. It's an excellent service. And for those who don't know, not only does it include Paramount Plus content, but it includes content from CBS, Nickelodeon,
and on
Comedy
top of that,
Central.
it has most of their shows, the newer ones anyway, have audio description.
Yes. And they even have the Smithsonian Channel content on there, the air disasters and disasters at sea, and what is it called? America in Color, a whole bunch of those. We actually get it included with our Walmart Plus subscription. Praise God. It's not the one with Showtime. It's just the basic one. So it has a few ads every now and then, but I honestly don't mind that. And then you can also subscribe as an Apple TV channel or directly from ParamountPlus.com, which is where the discount is that Trainer Cliff's talking about. Continuing on back to what we were saying about if it is, as I said, I was giving an example of how if it's a summer day or a weekend, we're still using technology. So I mentioned we use technology in the spring cleaning aspect of things. We also might use technology again as a family, doing anything from, even if we're doing a project that is really unrelated to technology, but we might use YouTube for how-to videos. My son has made some upgrades to his car, and as he's learning how to do that, which, with his experience and his job, he had a basic knowledge anyway, but, he wanted to be sure of some things. So it's so easy to have your phone out there with you in the garage and looking at things up on YouTube and on the web. And that's certainly not limited to cars and vehicles, right? Anything from how to bake a pie to how to wire a doorbell to, installing or whatever. I mean, you can find almost anything on YouTube. YouTube is one of my favorite and probably one of my most used apps, because there's so much that you can find there. So, it could be something like that as a family. A lot of times in the summer, we will go swimming, and none of us really keeps a deliberate track of our swimming because we don't do it for that purpose. We just enjoy being in the water, out in the sun, and I don't actually swim. I just like to splash around in the pool and walk around and so on, be with the kids and everything. But we often are wearing our Apple Watches. And so they can keep track of our swim. If that does matter to you, if you are someone who wants to keep track of fitness, you can use the swimming pool for some of that. They have swim workouts and of course, going for a walk outside. So all of these kinds of things. And when we, are watering things outside, the flowers and so on. Maybe at that given moment, we're not using our iPhones or iPads, but they're still connected to things in some way, because you go outside to water the plants and everything, and the door locks. So then you ask, who to unlock it for you, or whatever. So there's always that aspect of it. So I mentioned then that we're now going to be looking at lunch, and that's going to vary. And certainly not every day are we using technology with lunch, although we might be watching a show while we eat. But there are certainly days where we do, whether it's using DoorDash or Uber Eats, which are both available in our area, to have food delivered. If we needed to, we could use Apple Maps to find a restaurant. We could use our various apps to have, like, we have the Walmart app, and a couple of our grocery stores have apps that you can actually place grocery store orders for pickup. And then again, the other thing was that we have the ones, like some of the ones that Cliff mentioned as well, like Taco Bell and Applebee's and some of those. And so you're using them for delivery or for restaurant reservations or wait lists and those kinds of things. And of course, the Amber app I described to you, or Ombre, which is the recipe app. So there's a lot of ways you can use this with food prep or going out to eat. Most often now in a lot of restaurants, you can find the menus online. So you don't have to, bother with a Braille menu or mess with any of that stuff, because you can just go right to the app or the website to read what the restaurant menu has on it. And even our smaller restaurants, like in our community, our town, we have some chain restaurants, but we have a lot of locally owned, like family type restaurants and diners and so on. And even they have either websites or Facebook pages, and you can read their menus on there. And so it is very convenient and very handy. Honestly, that's about the only reason I use Facebook. I always joke with people, but I'm really pretty much serious. Basically, the only reason I use Facebook is to find out what the local restaurants have on special, because there's some restaurants, one of my favorites in the whole area, has different specials every month. And so they'll then post, here's our Monday special for May, and here's our Tuesday specials and stuff. So I can go on and see that. So those are some food related things which apply to not only lunch, of course, but other meals. And the Starbucks app, you get a cup of coffee, whatever. So those are some examples of how it's related to food. Some other things that we do, I absolutely use it for Bible reading and for Bible studying. I use the Bible app from YouVersion, which we talked about. Of course, we mentioned using the Kenneth Copeland Ministries app. The other thing I even have is sometimes I just want to do pure listening to an audio Bible. And I even like it to be, dramatized, where it's the different voices and stuff like that. That's sort of separate from the other Bible studying that I do. But I right now am using one. I've done different ones. And even the Bible app has some audio Bibles in it. So you can even do that if you want. But I recently got one from, I already had one in the Apple Books app that was the New Living Translation, which I really like. And it's the entire Bible. Recently, I was feeling in my spirit to read all 4 of the Gospels and the book of Acts. And so I wanted to get just a New Testament Bible that was dramatized in the Apple Books. And I got it in the New King James Version. It's done very, very well. And I've been listening to that as well. So lots of ways. And speaking of the Apple Books app, we can use the Apple Books app individually, but we can also use it for reference and research purposes, and we can use it with the kids and with the family. And I have read, because remember, Apple Books has both audio and regular digital, which just digital is, of course, read with voiceover for us. But I have read to the kids that way. Like, I think it is really amazing. And I hear sometimes, some people that say, when you use a device to read a book, that you're missing out somehow on something because it's a device now. Well, you don't have to miss out on that thing. That's entirely up to the person doing it. When I do it with my kids, when I read to my kids mostly my daughter now, because my son's older, but when I read to them in Apple Books, we stop and we look together at the photos, and we stop and talk about what such and such a character is doing or what they're going to do. And so we do the same things that we would do in a print book situation. And you actually have even more options because you can make highlights that will sync across all the devices. You can look up words immediately. Like if somebody says, well, what does that word mean? You can literally tap on that word and look it up in the dictionary. We demonstrated that, I think, when we taught Apple Books in this course. And so you have some real unique opportunities that are not available actually in reading of a traditional print media. So Apple Books is another great way that we do this. Of course, in the afternoon during the school year on weekdays, most days we're doing trainings like this. So obviously we're using technology there. I don't have to explain how we can use Zoom and all these things for training or, other similar things that we might be doing. And we've already talked about, most of the various things throughout the day, because what works for lunch can certainly work for dinner and all those types of things. Watching TV in the evening with the family, again, same kind of thing, whether it's a movie or a show or whatever. But there are also some unique experiences that I just want to highlight to give you some further insight as to really the fact that you don't have to stop and think about the technology, that it just becomes a part of your life. There have been some big projects over the past year that I've done or that I'm going to do again. One of those that comes to mind right away is this Bedford County Faith Summit. And for those who are believers in Christ, it'd be a really awesome opportunity for you to come to this community and experience this beautiful area, but more importantly, to hear the word of God and to grow your faith and learn to walk in victory. So if that's something of interest to you, let us know. We'll share the details as to where and how to attend. If you can't attend in person, I think in person is going to be the most ideal and the most beneficial. But if you cannot attend in person, we're also going to live stream it. So there's that technology again. We're going to be on YouTube. We're going to probably be on Facebook, live. We're going to do all those sorts of things. And you'll be able to go back and listen as well. That's going to be in July. But anyhow, so planning for that has, been another way of using technology, whether it's creating and to some extent, my mother has done the parts of this because she'll do the graphics. She's created for us posters and flyer kind of cards advertising the event. We've worked together on the website, actually got a little more work to do on it yet. That gives you all the details about the Faith Summit. We're working on, as I said, I'm going to do a video promoting it. So there's some things like that, and even writing letters for donation requests. But then there are some other events that have occurred. One of them I mentioned to you that I'm going into my daughter's school this Thursday, actually the day after tomorrow, to talk about the Titanic. And they had said for a while, my daughter had been telling me for months, they want you to come in and talk about the Titanic. She's still kind of at the age where having her dad come into class is exciting and not embarrassing. It's probably somewhere in the middle for her, but at least there's some degree of excitement there still. So she'd been saying to me for months, they want you to come in at the end of the year. And I said, well, as it gets closer to the end of the year, I'll send them an email. So, I did that. And what it turns out they want to do is actually a whole day of Titanic things. And so we're going to do all kinds of different things. And these projects, have led me to create some things using this technology. For one thing, we have a keynote presentation that we're going to show with all kinds of photos, and it gives us a chance to really talk about the Titanic from that perspective. But we also have, I was talking to my mom and I said, I've always wished when I do these presentations in school that I could give the kids a chance to experience the Morse code. Because, in Titanic's day, they didn't communicate over standard radios and talk to each other. They talked through wireless telegraphy and all the dots and the dashes. And that's what you had to listen to. And so sure enough, we found on YouTube very quickly, my mom actually found it, a running stream, and it's longer than what I'm going to let the kids listen to because it's like an hour and a half long. We're only going to play 2 or 3 minutes of it, but it'll show them, it'll give them the example, but it is the actual conversations that took place via Morse code on the night of the sinking. So it starts out with random conversations that the wireless operators are having with other ships. And before you know it, it turns to distress calls and they tell them, we're sinking by the bow. We require immediate assistance. Here's our location. And you can see it's actually rather eerie because as you read on, it gets worse and worse, but you're listening to it, but you're not hearing voices. You're hearing these beeps, these dots and these dashes. And it really gives you a new level of appreciation for what these wireless operators had to go through. Of course, one of them ended up losing his life in the process. The other one survived, praise God. But the process that they went through and how they must have been feeling. Because think about how sometimes when you're trying to plan something, we're going to meet you somewhere. What time is good? Where do you want to meet? And it takes the person a few minutes to respond with a text message, right? And you think to yourselves, what are they doing? Why aren't they responding to my message? Well, imagine if it was that kind of a situation. And not only is it that kind of situation, but they're not hearing voices or reading iMessages. They're hearing dots and dashes that they have to decode, basically. And it can get very cluttered. And there would be times when they say, we can't hear you because there's steam being vented, because when the Titanic stopped in the water, they had to blow off a whole bunch of steam so they didn't have explosions and all sorts of things. So this was a really crazy thing, but it's a neat experience that the kids will have. And then we're making some other documents that they're going to use in various projects on Thursday. And so we've got to print things out, and we've got to format things. And we even have the kids are going to be making a podcast on Thursday. Now, we won't call it a podcast because they didn't have podcasts back in 1912, or they certainly didn't have the word podcast, but they had radio shows, right? So that's what we're going to be calling it. But it's going to be a podcast. I mean, that's what it is. And so they'll use their devices. I wish I could tell you that their devices were iPads, but it's a Chromebook school. But they'll use their Chromebooks, and I'll use my iPad, and that's all right, But because this is connected digital life, so that, it works out. Another example of something that comes to mind is planning trips. We've done, most of we went to Disney World this past summer. We go to the beach pretty much every summer. We'll be going again this summer, praise God. And we often go to Hershey Park. My parents live near Hershey Park, and we are season pass holders to Hershey Park, praise God. And all of these things we plan them using the technology. Disney World is the most obvious because it was the most extensive, but even booking the beach reservations online, Hershey Park season passes. And it's so cool because you have to go to the park ticket office to activate your season pass, because they take your picture and they give you like welcome kits with these, like drink cups. You take this drink cup, and it's good for all year. Unlimited beverages. You can get a drink like every 20 minutes, soda, lemonade, water, whatever you want, tea. And you just fill them up there. And so you get all this. But then once your tickets are activated, you go into the app and you can add the season passes to your Apple Wallet. And so I shared, the passes with my kids and my wife. And now everybody's got the pass, I think, in our Apple wallets too. So there's technology in use. Trip planning. And I had to go to New Jersey in November for the National Federation of the Blind. Some of you probably were there. And when we did that, I planned that whole thing using the apps as well. I probably used an app to make the hotel reservation, truthfully, because most of those have, it's one of the big ones, right? It's either IHG, and this year's hotel was the IHG, I think, if I remember correctly. So I use the IHG app. Before, it's been the Marriott Bonvoy app. You can use Hilton Honors. All these apps, will allow you to make reservations, and they're usually pretty accessible. And so you can add them to your Apple Wallet again and everything. Not only did I do the hotel reservations, but also the train tickets, because we often take the train to New Jersey. So I make those reservations there with the Amtrak app. Again, they go in Apple Wallet. Airline reservations, the train tickets. And then again, when we're there, it might be using Apple Maps to find out, well, we're hungry for dinner. What does the hotel have? And what else is nearby? Or what does DoorDash offer that, we can have delivered? So all of these things work together. And then I just want to give you another example I want to come back to, and we're going to talk a little about HomeKit tomorrow. But among other things, not just HomeKit. Okay. So there's lots tomorrow, but, one of the things that I do want to come back to is the smart home aspect of things, because we have a variety, and I have never felt in our area like we need a full-fledged security system with professional monitoring and all that. We've had it at times because it was the most practical way to get what I wanted out of the technology, but I don't really, for a lot of reasons that I won't get into, praise God, I don't really feel like we need it typically, but I do like to have notifications when a door is open. And it's so funny, you couldn't hear it because it just happened because my son went out to leave for work. But what we have is we have a little system that is designed less as a security. You could use it as an alarm, sort of, but more as a notification system. And so I have door sensors on the doors that I want to be notified of. And when we open the door, it'll make a chime and it'll say to me, basement door open, or front door, or whatever. It'll say to all of us. You can hear it in the house. But not only that, it sends a notification to my phone as well, saying that the front door was open, and so forth. And so you can go back and look at that. That system also has a smoke alarm and a leak sensor, water leak sensor. You can add more sensors, and we have that, and we have cameras. And this is one of these cases where I've deviated from the HomeKit world, not because HomeKit isn't good. There are excellent HomeKit cameras out there, and there are some unique benefits that only HomeKit offers. But there are also unique benefits to some other products that are not HomeKit products, and I wish they were, and maybe someday they will be. But until they are, they're so good that I really don't want to switch from them. I have at times, but I've come back to them. And one of them is the Canary. To this day, I've left the Canary system. I've come back to it. I've left it. I've come back to it. But I always come back to it because to this day, it is, in my opinion, one of the best out there. It was light years ahead of its time when it was released, and it still offers leading technology. And the combination of features packed into a Canary device are still unmatched by any other manufacturer. You can sort of recreate the experience with multiple sensors, but the Canary has in it some of the best combinations. So it's got a camera, it's got night vision, it's got two-way audio, it's got a motion sensor, it's got climate monitoring, so it monitors the temperature, the humidity, and the air quality. It has a built-in siren. It's just a really unique set of features, and it even has auto arming based on the location of the Canary members' iPhones. And so when you leave the house, it automatically switches to night mode, or to away mode. At night, it switches to night mode, and it has person detection and all of these things. So it's a really, really powerful device. It's got video history of 30 days. And of course, watch live anytime, a fully accessible app. And it even has a desktop web interface you can go in and watch as well. And your time clips, it's got an Apple TV app. So we have the Canaries. And the reason I specifically brought those up right now is because back this winter, in February, my dad was having back surgery, and I felt like I should go down and spend a few days with my mom to help her out while he was in the hospital, because she has multiple dogs, and taking them outside and just doing things around the house and stuff. And I knew she would just appreciate the company. So I was down there for 3 or 4 days while he was in the hospital, and so forth. And one of the things that happened, which was really interesting, this is just such a cool example of the connected digital life. We, in our house, in our main living room, we have a small space heater. It is very, very small. It's not, and it's electric, and it's just there to provide a little additional heat in the winter months. And my wife and kids especially really like to have that thing cranked up. And it is very quiet. It's a very good system. But the neatest thing about it is smart. It is a Wi-Fi space heater. And so this is what happened, as it sometimes does in the winter. We'll have the space heater on and, maybe be drinking a cup of tea or something. And then next thing it's nice and warm. They're covered up in the blankets. We're watching TV, and we'll doze, or somebody will doze, and they're not awake, and they're just resting. Well, such was the situation when I was in Harrisburg visiting my parents. They had the space heater on and they dozed, which is not a problem, and it's not a major deal. But the Canary alerted me on my phone saying that the living room temperature was over 75 degrees. So I knew exactly what had happened. I knew because I had talked to them before. They were getting sleepy. I think they had even had off school because of snow, or they were going to the next day. And so it was one of those things. And I knew they were falling asleep. And I saw that and I said, that space heater, I guarantee you it's on. If I go into that app, I'll notice that it is on. And sure enough, it was. And here's the cool thing. I didn't even have to bother them and wake them up from their nice nap that they were having. I was able to turn the space heater off right in the app. And then I just sent a text to my wife, who I knew would be sleeping soundly enough that it wouldn't bother her at the moment. And I just said, hey, I just turned the space heater off because, and so this is the connected digital life. I mean, this is the kind of stuff you can do. And we can control our actual thermostat as well, switch to air conditioning, cool mode and heat mode, and adjust the temperature and so on remotely as well from our devices, from our Apple TV, from, away from home. It doesn't matter. All of these things can be done. We have the outdoor camera. We're actually in the process of switching video doorbells to a new one because I want to get a wired doorbell, and we're getting some wiring, but we'll have that door lock. And there's a couple different door locks that I'm actually looking at now. And there's some really nice door locks now. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to be a trader once again. Xfinity has a doorbell that they offer that uses a priority Wi-Fi channel to communicate with the gateway for better Wi-Fi. And I already have one of their cameras out there, and it works flawlessly. Like, I can connect to it the moment I tap on it. It's as if it was right beside me, and it's because it's their gateway, their camera. So it's prioritizing, so I'm going to go with their doorbell, but it has to be wired. And there is a lock. There are two different locks that I am looking at, but this new lock, for those who are interested in this thing is incredible. It's called the Level Lock Plus. It's very new on the market. It is pretty expensive as locks go. All right. It's over $300. But what this thing does, first of all, the build quality of it, they say, I'm waiting for mine to arrive. It's supposed to come tomorrow, but they say the build quality is just outstanding. They say it actually feels like it was made by Apple, even though it's not, but it is designed for HomeKit. So what this lock does, first and foremost, it's a HomeKit lock. But not only is it a HomeKit lock, it uses the new Apple Home Keys feature, which means the key to your house gets stored in your Apple Wallet. You can share it. It automatically gets shared with your family. You can share it with other people if you need to. And all you have to do, you don't even have to unlock your phone. You can set it to express mode. You don't even have to unlock your phone. You bring your phone up to the lock and tap the lock with your phone, and it unlocks your door for you. And you can do it with your Apple Watch. And it's even designed that if your battery goes to 0% and the phone shuts off, there's still a reserve of power that is saved for use with HomeKey. So this is a really, really cool feature. But that's not the only way you can get into the house. It also comes with NFC key fobs. It comes with traditional keys. And the version I got even comes with a keypad. So if you really need to, you can use even a push button keypad to unlock the door. This is a really, I'm excited to.
Is that powered by Bluetooth or Wi-Fi?
That one is Bluetooth. They do have a model that has Wi-Fi also, but as long as you have, a HomePod mini or something fairly close to your front door, you shouldn't need the Wi-Fi version because the hub will relay the stuff. So I just got the Bluetooth one because we do
the
have
Wi-Fi one more expensive.
Yes, but not by much. Not by a whole lot. I don't.
They don't have one that has both?
Yeah, well, it does. The higher model one does have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi.
Well, since we're talking about locks, why don't you tell us what your recommendation would be for somebody who can't install a lock on their door because they live in a controlled entry place like an apartment building or a gated community? What would you recommend for a lock or a doorbell that they wouldn't have to alter any of the the doors or things that they already have because they live in an apartment that's technically not theirs, but they pay rent for?
Yeah, the lock is the challenging part there because most locks are going to require some form of alteration to the door. Now, they do make conversion kits that will only change the inside piece and not the outside piece. And if your landlord is okay with that, you can use something like that. And I think the August one actually does that. I don't think you have to replace the deadbolt in the August version. And then there's some quick set ones like that, but they're not all HomeKit. The August is HomeKit. The limitation with the August is the colors. We have a polished brass door hardware, so it is very hard for us to find a door lock. In fact, the Level Lock Plus is right now, I believe, the
That August
only
one with HomeKit though is a
HomeKit.
hit or miss because when I had it before we moved from Minnesota, it was sometimes it would tell you that the door was locked or unlocked, but you had to actually go to the August app to lock and unlock it. If that makes sense, I don't know if they've
Yeah,
improved it because that was about 6 months ago. But that's what the issue was. I couldn't tell Siri to unlock or lock my door, but I could go into the August app and do it. Now maybe they fixed that with an update, but that's how it was when I was using it.
well, and see, that's where my concern. I don't. Again, now I have a home hub that's very close to the front door now, so I don't expect to have that kind of problem. But I told you I was considering two different locks. The other one is again an Xfinity partner product that I know will work because it uses Zigbee rather than Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and Zigbee is a very strong home automation signal, and it connects to the gateway that way. And so if the level lock is a problem, I guess I'll have to switch to that one. It's not as feature rich by any means, but it is a smart lock. It will auto lock, and it'll do what I need it to do. It'll get the job done. So if I can't get reliable signal with the level lock, but again, my HomePod is close enough that it should not be a problem. And most of the time, it really is going to be, I think, using the home key feature where you tap the iPhone to it. So that's something where we shouldn't have an issue. So I'm hoping and praying, but it'll be one of those two. But yeah, so for those folks, you could possibly get a conversion kit if your landlord will allow that. The doorbell is a bit easier because there are a few battery operated doorbells. Now there's only one that natively works with HomeKit. It's called Aqara, Aqara. It is a battery operated doorbell, and it has a little plug-in hub that plugs into the wall in your home and includes a chime and those sorts of things. It does work with HomeKit secure video for those who know what that is. We'll talk a little more about it tomorrow, but it does work with that. So it's a good option if you want to have a HomeKit doorbell. The other doorbell that I've liked a good bit, although I've ended up having some connectivity issues with it, is the Nest doorbell. They have a battery version of that, and you can get that to work with HomeKit by using a thing called the Starling Home Hub. So it's I like the doorbell to work with HomeKit when it can. Now I say that my Xfinity one won't, but it'll have some other things. But so that's another option is the Nest one. I am not a fan, and please understand, that I don't like to. I never want to disparage anybody, and I pray God's blessing upon them. But also, as a tech person, I have to be truthful with you and be very honest. So I feel like I'm helping you. I'm not a fan of the Ring products. We had them, and the app is just not that great when it comes to voiceover. Is it usable? Yeah, kinda. But it's challenging enough that I feel like if the doorbell rings and I want to talk to the person, I'm not convinced that I can do it quickly. And so I was never a fan of the Ring, and I felt like the Nest actually ended up getting some features that surpassed what the Ring had. And so I've avoided the Ring after my first Ring doorbell. There are some other HomeKit ones if you do have wiring, Logitech Circle View, Arlo, and the Xfinity one is available to me because I am an Xfinity customer. But I don't, that is not a HomeKit doorbell. It will work on the TV if you're using the X1 platform, but there is an iPhone app. And it does have the motion notifications and all of the other things. So it's a very nice option. There's actually quite a few video doorbells out there, and if you want a battery operated one because it is an apartment complex or something, you definitely can do that. And Aqara, I think, is a good option there, in order to get that HomeKit experience as well. So Trainer Cliff, do you have anything to say or anything to add about the connected digital life and a day in your life or what have you, and how anything I might not have thought about that you want to cover?
Well, I mean, you pretty much covered everything. Only thing that I would add, and I think we have an actual cafe on this posted somewhere, and maybe we'll do an updated one, is just be safe with your devices. Make sure you keep your passwords updated, that you enable keychain, two-factor authentication. Make sure, and this is an important one because when we moved to Texas, um, we changed all our phone numbers. And one of my kids ended up breaking their phone. And when they got a new device, they weren't able to authenticate their number. Why? Because they forgot to update their trusted phone number. They ended up, being able to get back into the broken phone through voiceover by watching me do it multiple times using voiceover. They knew how to use it, so they were able to go back into that old phone and update that trusted phone number. That way, they could get the new code to the new device. But one thing you want to make sure you always do if you change your phone number is update your trusted phone number, and you find that by going to settings, your name, sign in to security, and two-factor authentication. Just because you get a new phone number that attaches itself to your Apple ID does not mean your trusted phone number will be updated. There's other options in there too. You can also have a legacy contact. Lo and behold, the Lord calls you home, and somebody needs to get your photos, or maybe they want to contact people to let them know that what happened. But heaven forbid. But there is a legacy contact in that you can assign, and some other things. But other than that, the connected digital life, it can be successful and beneficial if you have everything set up the correct way. Talking to TTJ and Stir It Up will get you that, with HomePods, Apple TVs, phones, iPads, doorbells, security systems, and all that stuff. But other than that, I think we pretty much covered everything.
I'm glad you brought up what a good plug that is for next Tuesday's session, because that's the one we're going to open up to everybody. And it's exactly that. It's that staying safe in a digital world. And we're going to go extensively into that. And that is one of the things that we always tell you, but Cliff's family is a living example of it now. Make sure you keep your trusted phone numbers up to date. We've always said that, but that's a firsthand account of what happens if you don't. So that's really, really important. And what I've done, I've added multiple trusted phone numbers. So I think both my kids are in there now. I had put my son in before my daughter was old enough to have a phone, but now she does have one. I'm pretty sure I've added her. And I also have, of course, my wife in there, and I have our house phone number. I have one of my parents. I think I have my mom in there. And you don't typically need this because two-factor authentication works other ways, but it's just the idea that, that way you could give her a call and say, hey, Mom, Apple's about to call you with a code. Please give me that code. So, you can do this, and there's different options that we'll talk about next week, but that is a very good point. And to the other point that Trainer Cliff said about the HomePods, I didn't, mention the HomePods a lot today, but they are a fantastic. First of all, I believe they're the best speakers that I've ever heard for a consumer level. I mean, if you're performing on the road in front of 5,000 people, you need something different.
There are some that swear by these Sonos products that they sound better than the HomePods, and because they can be connected with HomeKit and your Apple TV, that it's just the best thing since sliced bread. It says the HomePod can't even come close. What do you say to that review? I mean, because you've owned Sonos products, right?
Well, I've owned Sonos products, and I sold them in favor of the HomePod. So I think that probably says it all about my opinion of it. I admire what Sonos does. I think they're a great company. I think they have a great product, but I prefer the HomePod. And our house is filled with HomePods. I'd have to actually count to tell you how many we have, because a couple of our rooms, actually 3 of our rooms, have stereo pairs of HomePods. And even the master bathroom has a HomePod, so you can be in the shower and playing music, or you can just ask what the time is, or whatever, and so it's we have them all throughout the house. Pretty much any room of our house that you're in, you can say somebody's name, because we have all 3. Praise God, although we have more HomePods than any of the other ones, but you can say somebody's name, Google or SIRI or ALEXA, and they'll answer in pretty much any room. And I think that's a cool thing, because you always have access to those things. And as somebody might ask, well, why do you have the other 2 if you like Apple so much? Well, every one of them has their strengths, and they're all really good nowadays, but everyone has certain things they excel at. I had the Googles when we had gotten our Nest doorbell and lock, even though those also work with HomeKit, but Google has the display. If Apple gets the display, I might, get rid of the Googles, or maybe not. I don't know, because I also have that smart toaster oven, which has its own app that Kosori that Cliff and I were talking about yesterday, and it has its own app called VSync, and it's very accessible. So you don't really need to use a smart voice assistant with it because the app works so well. But you can do quick functions with Alexa for that, and say like, set the oven to 400 degrees on bake or something. You can do those things. And the space heater is a Google product, not a HomeKit one. We have humidifiers. They do have HomeKit humidifiers, but at the time that I got it, the one that worked with Google was a bigger humidifier and had a few extra features. So we got that one, And when I talk about humidifier, I'm talking about little like that have the water and then the diffusers. You can put like scents in them and stuff just for a single room. What was the other one that we have with Google? Oh, some of our lights now they've since come out with. So the way we used to do lights was Philips Hue, and Philips Hue is HomeKit. I don't recommend Philips Hue. Again, just being completely honest with you. And the reason I don't is because most of their light bulbs seem to require a bridge. And I just try to avoid that when I can. Sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes you have to have a hub or a bridge, but it just adds another layer of complexity to the things. And I suppose it's really designed out of good intentions because, again, the bulbs connect to the bridge with Zigbee then, which means they're probably going to have a better range. But it just is, it just was, I don't know. And also it's very expensive. Buying Hue bulbs is really expensive. And my son found these lights that he wanted for his room a few years ago for Christmas that were like a light strip of different colored lights and stuff. And he said, oh, they have bulbs too. And it was only like $12 for a bulb instead of what Hue was charging, for their bulbs. And I said, we could do these for the whole house. They don't require a hub. They're Wi-Fi only. And we could get the whole house outfitted with these bulbs for way less than, they work with Google, not SIRI. Since that time, there have been a few bulbs that do work with HomeKit that are about that same price. In fact, I think I paid like $12 or $18 for two HomeKit bulbs from a company called Miras. And so you can do it now. But when I did it at the time, they had Google. So we have some Google ones, whatever. Again, I don't, I've made it very clear that I think Apple is the best company. If anybody doubts that, you haven't been to very many of our sessions. But I am willing to use some other products if I feel that the situation is most suited for it, And if something comes out that's HomeKit that's equivalent or better, absolutely, that's what I'll go to because that is my preference. And so, as I said, when I eventually did find those HomeKit bulbs that were similar in price, I ordered them and right away. And they're color bulbs, and so are the Google ones. So you can change the colors of the lights and stuff, and adjust the brightness with SIRI or Google, depending on which ones you're doing. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and I want to go to questions from all of you because I'm sure there might be some questions now. That gives you kind of an overview of what a day in the connected digital life is like.
If you lose your Wi-Fi service for, say, a couple of days, what would you do? You can't use any of that stuff, right?
Well, theoretically, a lot of that stuff will be much more difficult to use in the event that there is a Wi-Fi issue. Now, there are some exceptions to that, like the door lock, for example, is deliberately designed with Bluetooth so that you can still communicate from your phone directly to that, or it also has a traditional key. Most of these products have alternative ways of operating them. Like, for example, the smart plug that controls the coffee maker has a button on it that you can press, to turn it off and on. And, it doesn't even have to be something that drastic. It could be a Wi-Fi update that's occurring right when you need a device. And it's, your Wi-Fi is only down for 5 minutes, but, you notice it pretty quickly if you're doing something like that. And so absolutely these things can happen. But I think the important thing to keep in mind when you talk about things like that is that how do I want to say this? Because I don't want to make anybody think, including Shirley herself, I don't want to make anybody think that I'm being insensitive to what she is saying. But I think it's important to have the perspective that if you choose to, you can find a what if with just about any product, anything. I mean, people have had situations where they go to start their car and their car battery is no longer working, or you thought you had another tube of toothpaste and you realized you lost track and you don't, and so until you get to the store you can't brush your teeth. I mean, there's always going to be that what if, that if you try hard enough you can come up with it. I think the question you got to ask yourself is what's going to give me the best experience the majority of the time, and assuming that, praise God, everything goes well, this is what it's going to look like. Again, there are backups for these things. There are always buttons. There are always those kinds of things. I'm thinking about the light bulbs. There might not be button backups on that because your light switch has to stay in the on position anyway. But there are typically ways of working around these things in those events that you absolutely need to.
Accessing like your SD card or a thumb drive or something.
I didn't directly give a demo of using an SD card, but it's the same as using anything else in the Files app. You just have to go to you just have to have the correct adapter, which we did talk about. There are, so you make sure. Okay. So then you're going to open the Files app and you'll have to show the sidebar. And in the sidebar, you're going to go to locations and make sure locations is expanded and not collapsed. And when it's expanded, under locations will be iCloud Drive, on my iPad, and anything else you might have in there. But one of the locations will be your USB drive or your SD card. So then you can just double tap on that.
Once you plug it all in, then it will see it. Yeah.
That's right. God bless you. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks to Trainer Cliff for your help, and everybody for participating. And take care. God bless you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining today's session. Didn't get your question answered? Want paid one-on-one training? Email us at support@ttjtech.biz or support@stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U. That's STURITUP.com. I'm Trainer Cliff. Thanks for joining us. God bless. See you next time.